English translation. 351st Contact. Saturday, 6th of December 2003, 00.16 hours.
Be greeted and welcome, my friend. It is a pleasure to see you. Although you are here 2 days earlier than I thought. But the work is all done, so you can take everything with you. That is why you are here, yes?
It is also a pleasure for me to greet you and to bring you greetings from all who know you. But regarding your question, yes, I came here to pick up your work.
Actually quite funny, because everything is stored in the control panel where you can just pull the data off.
Your written work is easier because everything is already written and can be translated. But if we take the data out of the control device, it will bring a respectable amount of extra work. Your work is stored impulsively and must first be implemented.
This impulse memory, is it based on individual letters or words?
The whole thing is based on your very extensive vocabulary, which falls outside the usual norm.
Eh? Now just say that you have saved every word I know.
That is the point of my speech.
Terrific.
That is true of your vocabulary.
Never mind. I did not want to hear that. Let us talk about something else. Can you say if you actually know the motives of the American President George W. Bush regarding why he is fighting wars, especially in Islamic countries? In my opinion, this guy believes that he is called by God to eradicate Islam, and therefore he is waging a real religious war against Islam. But he covers it up by saying that he is only fighting terrorism.
Bush was an alcoholic and converted to evangelism because he believes that God appeared to him and in whose name he is now the angel of revenge against those of other faiths, especially with regard to those who believe in Islam. He actually lives in the delusion of his sectarian faith, out of which he also suffers from the delusion that his God has given him a sign and commissioned him to wage war against those of other faiths. His delusion in this respect goes so far that, as a captive of his sectarian faith, he can no longer distinguish between imagination and reality, and in addition, in the delusion he boasts that he has been directly commissioned by his God as an avenger. He expresses this in all his stupid and very unintelligent idioms, as well as in his movements and gestures, which bear witness to incredible self-importance and unsurpassable megalomania. However, he knows perfectly well how to suggestively cast a spell on people who are easily influenced and weak in intelligence, and how to use them as tools for his bloody campaigns of conquest and revenge. The stupid and weak intellectuals are unfortunately not able to recognize his true nature, so they become in bondage to him and lick the food out of his hand like humble dogs.
Aha, that is clear and obvious. I also think that the evangelists, whose sect he apparently belongs to, have made the main efforts to get Bush at the helm as U.S. president. In general, I would also like to say that all religious and sectarian fanatics, fundamentalists and conservatives are very dangerous creatures, because in their delusion of faith, their signs are hatred, vengeance, and a desire for revenge, which is why they cry out for torture, the death penalty, war, terror, and destruction, and do everything they can to indulge this delusion and make it a reality. And whoever is a supporter of torture, the death penalty, war, terror, and destruction, and all other related evils cannot and must not justifiably call himself or herself a human being, but only an incredibly primitive, unscrupulous, irresponsible, unfit for life, and miserable creature.
You hit the core of the matter very accurately.
War is terrorism, just as terrorism is war. War and terrorism are always and in every case directed against innocent people, no matter whether the background of war and terror is religious, sectarian, political, philosophical, or otherwise ideological, caused and triggered by state powers, religious leaders, dictators, or other lunatics and madmen. And they are all the same, as is the case with U.S. President Bush. Namely, that they also assign murder, war, death, terror, and destruction to others who carry out murderous machinations such as war, terror, death, and destruction. The latest examples are Afghanistan and Iraq, two countries where the resistance of the natives will stand as long as the invaders are not driven out. In both countries, as in the rest of the world, there will only be peace when the world domination-obsessed USA powers of the entire military of all kinds and economy return to America and stay there. Only then a way to a worldwide peace will slowly open up, which will still have to be worked towards for many decades. For my part, I estimate that if the world were finally to become free of America's powers, if the Americans were actually to withdraw to their country, and if real and logical peace efforts were then made worldwide, it could then take between 50 and 80 years to create real world peace. The whole thing would have to be under the patronage of a world government, but one that guaranteed each country its own security and administration. But the USA would have to be excluded from the outset as the seat of the world government, because such a government could only be located in a neutral place, which would be best created somewhere in a mountain range or in a desert.
This corresponds to our actions about 52,000 years ago.
That is where I got the idea from. At that time, you created a world government island in a mountain range from where your world was pacified in the wise, as I said. Simyase once explained that to me. You also talked about it once.
That is correct.
A question regarding bodybuilding, which is done on Earth by men and women, who look like muscle men, so to speak. There are also national and world championships. Does that also exist with you, and what do you think of it?
You have already asked about it once in connection with beauty contests and models. It was on the 14th February 1995. At that time, I explained that bodybuilding was something as unnatural as men voting at beauty contests because it was a human meat show and a human meat trade. I also explained that bodybuilding disfigures the body in a disgusting wise. Concerning the models, I explained that there is nothing wrong with it if one leaves aside the way how unnatural the models move and behave and how they consider themselves to be more valuable than they really are. This applies to both men and women. Bodybuilding, as practiced by terrestrial human beings, is generally frowned upon, because bodybuilding disfigures the body to such an extent that it has an unaesthetic and nauseating effect. Our races generally pay attention to an aesthetic body. However, this crude manner of disfiguring the body was also common among our ancestors at a very early time, when they were still attached to certain forms of primitivity in terms of aesthetics and the development of consciousness.
Then the terrestrial human being is in this stage?
You may take that from my words.
I do, too. But I think that doing or not doing it in relation to bodybuilding is the same as anybody's own beer. As in any other connection, such as movement and dressing or whatever it is, as long as it is not against morality and not against order and law.
This corresponds to the necessary tolerance.
I see it as so also. That is why I do not get disturbed by things that are solely the private concerns of humans. Whether or not something looks aesthetic to me, that is my business. I simply find it important that I keep my own view of aesthetics to myself and do not offend other humans. My normal rule is also that I remain neutral in my thoughts and feelings towards my fellow human beings and do not form any opinion about how they dress, adorn themselves, or treat their bodies, etc.
My father Svath already told me about this. Already as a little boy you cultivated this tolerance.
Very wise teachers like Svath, my father and my mother, Father Zimmerman, my teachers Karl Graf and Gustav Lehmann, as well as various Buddhist monks in India, as you know. But this is not what I want to talk about. The matter is this. For years I have been pondering how we could spread the teaching so that human beings would really come into contact with them. From our association Figu alone, we reach only a small part of those people who might be interested. So, I thought, another way has to be taken to spread the teaching out into the world without missionary work. 2 years ago, the German publishing house R.G. Fischer Verlag wrote to me about sending in a work, a manuscript, with the intention of publishing it as a book. In this regard, I have now decided to ask the publishing house for further documents, perhaps to have some of our books published by them. But now we have the condition that our books, if they are translated into other languages, must contain the original German text in addition to the foreign language. But exactly this might be impossible if the books are published by a foreign publisher. In my opinion, however, this should not be a problem because such publications by foreign publishers are not really learning in the sense of a study of the humanities, as is the case with us as a member of Figu. Therefore, a foreign publication should not be important in terms of study, but it should still serve the purpose of bringing people into contact with the material, without missionary work. Those who feel addressed by the contents of the book are absolutely free to contact our Figu Association for further information. In this wise, no proselytizing coercion is exerted on the humans, but it remains to be up to their absolutely own decision and freedom whether they want to obtain further information from us. Do I now correctly assume that the whole thing can be handled in this wise, or are there any objections to it? I would also like to say that my opinion is that only we, from our Figu Association and from the other Figu groups, must be concerned that any translation of the books into a foreign language must be accompanied by the original text in German, because this is a study of spiritual teaching. Is this correct or am I wrong?
Your remarks do not reveal anything that could be contrary to the obligation. Your idea is good and very well thought out, so you should pursue it. With regard to the original language, together with a foreign language, it is important that the given obligation is respected by your groupings.
Man, listen to you. Do you hear how my concerns are falling like boulders on the floor? So, you really think I should continue in this matter?
That is my opinion, yes. You do not come into conflict with the provision, because bilingualism is only related to your groupings, because only through you the teaching goes out, but not through foreign publishers.
Fine. Thanks.
Now, my friend, I have some things to discuss with you regarding our work, but they are not official. But I would not like to miss the opportunity to convey to all members of the group loving greetings from my daughters Simya Se and Pleja, as well as from Quetzal and all the others. We would also like to express our gratitude to all the members of the group for all their efforts in all aspects of their personal efforts and in relation to the efforts for the mission.
Thank you also on behalf of all group members. From some of them I also have many greetings to extend to you. It would be appropriate for all group members to read your words for themselves, because my words would not be the ones you spoke. But now let us turn to the other things.